Joined by Dennis Fast and Harv Lane. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Good to have you here, both bird enthusiasts and bird experts. And now I just showed you that video that I posted of a boreal owl. Is that a boreal owl?
That's right.
It was in the backyard of Sue Dirkson's house in Mitchell.
That's amazing.
Now, is this rare to have a bird like this in your backyard?
Well, we in Kleefeld, I've heard them, but and I have seen them the odd time. But you certainly hear these a lot more often than you see them.
Well, the thing that triggered her off was that the blue jays were going nuts in her backyard. She goes and starts videotaping, and this blue jay is swooping at the owl, trying to get it out of the tree.
When I hear blue jays screaming, or chickadees chattering, nuthatches chattering, woodpeckers complaining, I usually go out immediately because they're often revealing a little owl hiding somewhere. The thing about these boreal owls is they are northern nesters. They're boreal forest nesters. They'll nest east of Steinbeck out in the sandy lands in Marchand occasionally, but usually a little further north. And they're only through here on migration. They do migrate. Because owls migrate at night, we're not aware of this, but there are a lot of owls passing through Manitoba at both shoulder seasons and heading a little further south into the northern United States.
Well, this was a real treat for her because she's an owl nut. And then to have this rare treat in her backyard was something special.
There's a lot of owl nuts around. I've been fortunate enough to have had a boreal owl in my yard at 3 different places where we've lived. And when we first had one in Kleefeld many years ago, 2 days later I had a call from Texas. Somebody wanted to come and see it, wondering if it was still there. And somehow through the grapevine I'd heard that I had a boreal owl in my backyard.
Wow.
So that's how popular they are, how much in demand. People really want to see that bird because it's small, it's elusive, and it isn't seen that often.
Now, as a professional photographer, of course, you're probably best known for that picture of an owl flying straight at your camera. What kind of owl was that?
That's the great gray owl, which is our provincial bird. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with those guys. and this is an eruptive year. What we mean by that is that because of the heavy snow in the woods and so on, owls get pushed out into the open. They like to hunt in the ditches and in the fields. And friends of mine went out this winter one day and they saw, I think it was 54 great gray owls who've been pushed out of the woods. They'll now be disappearing. In April they start their nesting activity and they disappear into the woods, and you likely won't see them till next winter, and maybe not in any numbers at all.
So that was the picture of a lifetime, eh?
You bet.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more with Dennis Fast and Harv Lane about their I almost said obsession. Their love of birds right after
Call
Susan
it what
McNeil.
it is.
Well, that's great to have, two friends, lifelong friends that have the same passion for birds. And tell me about the big year. Harv, what's the big year?
Well, you try during a calendar year to see how many birds you can see or hear in a specific area. And to a lot of the birds you identify just by hearing, and you have to know your birds well to be able to do it that way. But you have to plan your year, and there are certain times of the year when you can get certain birds. Some just come through in migration. If you miss them, you miss them.
Oh, so you have like a checklist or a wish list?
Well, we always have a wish list. I mean, there's always birds that you would like to see and like to hear, but you sort of have after having birded for as many years as we have, we know what time of year is your best chance to get which birds. And
so how many birds did you get in your big year?
I think I got 282.
Wow.
Yeah, I was at 285, which ended up being actually the Manitoba record for a couple of years. And to get that kind of a total, you have to go to Churchill because there's about 10, 15 species potential there that you don't get here. You have to go to southwest Manitoba where there's a half a dozen nesting species of birds that actually birders come from all over to see as well. Birders that go to Churchill, for example, from the United States or Europe, they will usually also go to southwest Manitoba to pick up Baird sparrows and grasshopper sparrows and hopefully burrowing owls, although they're almost gone. And that's how you build your numbers and keep your fingers crossed.
And that's quite a commitment, like for a year, and you're traveling all over Manitoba to try to find these elusive birds. Like that's quite a commitment.
You need to depend on the birding fraternity to get phone calls that such and such has shown up and where, and then you need to get in the car and go.
Pardon the pun, but have the bird lovers turned to Twitter? Are they tweeting?
They're too cheap for that.
Too cheap to tweet? It's free.
Oh, that's right.
But we used to have something called the Rare Bird Alert, which where you were phoned. There was a phone line where you'd phone and you'd get a phone call and phone somebody else next in line. Now it virtually all goes on to a website, and you check it regularly.
Internet is quicker and more efficient, really.
Yeah. Talking about birding, and they were talking about going out on the big year, where for a whole year you need to go out and see how many different species you can see within that 1 year period. And Harv, Dennis beat you by a couple of birds. How did that happen?
Well, it just happened that we had a track meet or something in Kleefeld it was a Saturday, I know, and I was working at the track meet with Dennis's son while he was out birding and finding 3 birds that I didn't ever get to see that year.
So while you're looking after his boy, he's out beating you in finding birds.
Get over it, Harv. Get over it.
Okay, right.
Now, you guys also have gone for the big day,
Oh, yes, many times.
where you have to go for 24 hours and see how
Right.
many birds. Now, tell me about the record you held.
Well, we actually hold records for several months of the year. The records are kept in North America for each jurisdiction. Every province, every state runs these things. So it's a competitive thing, right? And Manitoba, because of the migration patterns, has good numbers of birds. And yes, I'm part of a team that I think still holds the record for August. I think June got broken last year by another team. But the record in Manitoba, for example, of June, which, as I say, was broken a couple of years ago, is 214 species in 1 day. And most people would find that hard to believe.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of the birding. Well, you start at midnight, so the first 5 hours, 4 hours are in complete darkness, and so it's all birding done by ear. But that's when you get your owls and a lot of the night birds in the marshes and so on.
And you need to know your bird calls.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Okay. In a few minutes, I want to play a little game. I want to see if you guys recognize each other's bird calls, okay? Now, sometimes you're saying that you identify the birds by hearing. Now, does that considered as an encounter with this bird when you're...
If for big days or big years, if it's a bird that you know well enough and you can feel comfortable to identify it that way, yes.
So you guys are good at your bird calls? You know your bird calls?
Well, I pretend to.
Okay.
Don't know them all, but I know most of Manitoba birds actually by call.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to have a bird call-off between the two of you.
Now, that's
So-
a different story. Making the sounds is different than recognizing them.
So this could go twofold. You could just screw up the bird call, and
That's
then
right.
he's going to get it wrong. But I know you guys work with integrity. You guys have to still be neighbors after this in
That's
Kleefeld.
right.
Yeah, okay, you go with that if you believe that.
All right, Harv, why don't you start off with a bird call, and Dennis, you see if you can identify his bird call.
Okay.
Dennis, what's that?
Well, Harv, of course, picks the easiest one right away, right? A lot of people call me about that bird, actually, and they say, "What's this bird in my backyard?" And it's at night, or not bird. They say, "I'm hearing the sound of a truck backing up or something."
Yeah.
Like what's going on? Yeah. And I go, well, I know immediately. It's a saw-whet owl, and I guess it was named from the fact that the call resembles somewhat somebody sharpening a saw in the good old days with a whetstone. The
Wow.
So that's where it got its name.
Is he correct?
Yeah.
He's correct. All right. So Dennis has one. One for Dennis. All right. Dennis, you make a bird call, and let's see if Harv can figure it out.
Well, here's a call that sometimes gets confused with another bird, and I'm not very good at this one, but let's see.
Well,
Harv?
the bird that he's doing is very similar to the saw-whet owl, and that's why, of course, it gets confused. They're almost the same size. The bird that he was doing was the boreal owl, which you have the picture of, and they're almost the same size. You have to look very carefully and know your birds to be able to tell them apart.
Is he right?
Yes, except I didn't do it nearly as loud as it calls in a while. It's tough to do.
Congratulations. All right. So now we're tied 1-1. Let's see if we can do a tiebreaker. Harv, do you have another bird for us? Well, that's got a warble.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, that's actually, surprisingly enough, it's a screech owl, and to my mind, totally misnamed. If you hear that call, because it's a very gentle trill.
Yeah.
And it's a bird that nests commonly in Winnipeg because it loves river areas, riparian woods. But it does occasionally give a screeching call, and it sounds a bit like this.
It's a horse.
Exactly. And
Is he right?
Yes.
Way to go, Dennis. All right, Dennis, one more bird for Harv.
Well, I suppose it's the easiest to do owl calls because little Tweety birds, they have such a great variety of songs. So I'm going to do one that's my favorite, probably owl song, and I'll have to back up a little bit.
Okay.
But I've called owls out of the woods many times making this call.
You sure that's not a monkey?
They sound just like it, and when I get in conversation with them, they get so excited that it sounds like a troop of monkeys between us. It's great.
And
Well, if it were in a zoo, it would be a monkey, but out in the boreal forest, that's a barred owl.
a barred owl,
A
is you right?
barred owl.
Congratulations, we're tied. You know what? I only have one bird call that I know.
Okay.
Let's see if you guys can figure
Okay.
this one out. Okay.
Oh, you turkey.
Harv Lane and Dennis Fast, thanks for joining me, guys. A lot of fun.
You're welcome.
Okay.
It sure was.
Thank you.